The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us.
As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn and at the fall of dusk.
Talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that that has not
Christian
come.
faith.
I have known Islam on 3 continents. Islam on 3 continents.
Has lots of different kinds of people. Elven people, dwarven people, tree people, half-sized people, even people. There's like a million pages of background explaining this world that goes much deeper than the books or the movies, but if you don't want to read it all, here's a 4-minute summary, starting with wizards. It's easy to mistake the wizards as humans trained in magic, like elsewhere, but in the Lord of the Rings, wizards are low-ish level angels. They're called Istari, get ready for lots of names in this video, and there are 5 of them: Saruman the White, Gandalf the Grey, Radagast the Brown, and the 2 blue wizards. Their power comes mostly from being supernatural and not so much from book learning. They're sent by who, we'll get to that in a second, to help the people of the world stand against evil, not wildly successfully either. Saruman, the leader of the 5 with a mind of metal and wheels, gets corrupted, Radagast gets distracted by all the pretty nature, the blue wizards just kind of fade into the east, possibly starting cults of magic, and it's only Gandalf that stays true to the quest. Now, where there's angels, there's a god, and in this universe, that's Eru Iluvatar. In the beginning, there was naught but Eru and the infinite timeless nothing, which is rather boring, so he created lots of angels to keep him company. Iluvatar's angels are called the Ainur and are divided into 2 groups: the Valar, guardians of the world, of which there are 14, or 15 depending on who you want to count, and their servants the Maiar. So the wizards are the Istari, a subset of the Maiar, which serve the Valar, all created by Iluvatar. Iluvatar and all his angels sang together to make the world. The harmony started out great, but there was one Valar named Melkor, and just from the name Melkor, you know what's going to happen, even before learning he's also the smartest and the most powerful of the angels, and also a bit of a loner. Melkor didn't want just to be part of the chorus like his dimmer Valar co-workers, he wanted his own song and creations, and so his voice became discordant from the others and created all the suffering and evil in the world. But Melkor's song also attracted some Maiar to his side, including the Balrogs, which means the Balrog is a low-level angel, making him on the same level of the power org chart as Gandalf, which explains why an old man can hold his ground against a giant lava monster. Through his discordant singing, Melkor also created some of the evil creatures in the world, such as the dragons and trolls, which finally gets us to things that aren't angels. Other Valar also made their own non-angelic creations, though in a more cooperative spirit with Iluvatar. Manwë makes the great eagles, Aule made the dwarves, and his wife Yanava made all of the animals and plants in the world before capping off that minor task with the Ents, her own race of sentient creatures. While Iluvatar seemed happy to leave it to his Valar to make most of this stuff, he did personally create men and elves, which makes them special and kind of above all the other living creatures. Sorry, dwarves. And of these 2, the men are Iluvatar's favorite children, and he shows this by giving men shorter lives than everybody else, and also the gift of death. Thanks a lot, Dad. But their short lives set them apart from the other creatures, and they aren't tied to the music of creation and the world like everyone else, and so are able to forge their own futures. These qualities make them the get-stuff-done species of Middle-earth. Elves, on the other hand, are so connected to the world they're practically made of nature, same with the dwarves in their own way, and the Ents of course. These species all but follow the flow of nature, and it's partly why the humans have such a hard time getting them to do anything, even when faced with armies of orcs, which brings us to orcs. Melkor was powerful but couldn't make his own creatures as great as the elves and men, and so cheated by corrupting some of them in the beginning and selectively breeding them over the generations into these creatures. This business Melkor was up to of torturing elves, making monsters, recruiting angels from the other side, eventually, but unsurprisingly, led to a war that Melkor loses and got him banished into the void. All of the conflict in The Lord of the Rings comes long after the epic good versus evil fight of that universe. Sauron, the big bad who caused all of the trouble in these books, was just one of the Maiar, though an unusually powerful one, who started his career as Melkor's lieutenant. After the war, he did make a ring to focus his strength, but that's a story for another time. Last but not least, we have the hobbits. Even though they seem related to dwarves, what with the living underground and the vertical challenge, hobbits are subspecies of men. For such an important and pivotal race, there is little written of their origin other than the phrase related to men.
9 rings were gifted to the race of men, who above all else desire power. For within these rings was bound the strength and will to govern each race.
I'm not gonna hurt you, Natalie. Remember me. Remember who I am.
That's a Freemason symbol.
Was Coronado in the Masons?
One ring to rule them all.
Maybe one of these Red Indians wandered into Whitechapel and indulged his natural inclinations.
Hey. You move, I'll put a bullet to your fucking head.
Beaner Fair doesn't agree with me, but the price sure is right.
This is so perfect. Amanda Beckett is single. And on the night of this party, a party I'll be attending, a party she'll be attending, it's all falling into place. It's like it's fate. It's mine.
My own.
My precious.
Precious?
I see you. Lass einen am Leben. Dann tut die anderen.
It is true. Gilbert, what if something were to happen to you? Something unforeseeable, something sudden, random.
Make a deal with me, kid. You can have the car and everything that goes along with it. Looks like we got ourselves a contract. We shake hands. If you can't trust the man you've hired to kill your wife, then why know you?
Стэн откажет мне, ты ему за это платишь. Поэтому я прошу тебя, Уэйд. Это очень поможет мне, Джин и Скотти.
Джин и Скотти никогда не придется ни о чем.
Adaptable to steaming jungles and burning deserts and frozen Arctic wastes. Well, of course it's adaptable because it's a robot.
Talk it over. I have to take this call. Cynthia, you changed the fucking font on the promo. Why?
We'll do it. We'll do it.
Ken Garver here. Look, can't this wait? I'm in the middle. No. Come, I'm on my way.
Okay, listen, Turk. When this phone rings, you answer it. You understand?
Yes, I answer it.
You and you alone. Are we clear?
Me and me alone, right.
Great.
Hey. That's a Freemason symbol.
Smooth to the touch.
Easy, Tiger.
This ruby, fallen from the very brow of ancient kings, a true crown jewel.
Suitor's pain.
What
You have to go with what he says. He's never let us down yet.
Oh, I see. Another mystery.
Have one of your people check her out.
You know I can't do that. One whisper of this wouldn't just destroy Deputy Prime Minister Strong, it would bring down the whole government.
Where you want it?
Bay 12, please.
I love DJing. I love music. What's your dream playlist?
What is the profession?
Yeah, which profession are we talking about?
Just look at it. Is it a legal profession? Of course it's legal. It's a legal my profession.
I'm trying to read it.
Okay.
It's too many diamonds.
Yeah, that's too bright. That's too bright.
Well, anyway. Oh, Mason, are you a Mason?
Of course I am.
Okay. The secret ceremony.
Well, you might as well put your pinky out when you drink your drink.
Course I am.
Wow. Put your pinky out.
You're involved in the secret ceremonies? Stop it.
Destroy it!
No.
You see, dude?
You with me, Jimmy?
And the book says we may be through with the past, but the past ain't through with us.
I shall tell you where we are. We are in the most extreme and utter region of the human mind. A radiant abyss where men meet themselves. I see you. There is no life in the void. Only death.
I don't understand that. I don't understand, sir.
Hell, Netley. We're in hell.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
These books are all about this ring, how it's found, and, spoiler alert, how it's destroyed. While Tolkien built the largest and most consistent fictional universe, he sure didn't mind being vague at times, so if you finished the story and then thought, wait, what can this ring do and where did it come from? This is your video. First thing first, the One Ring is not the only ring. It's Lord of the Rings after all, and that lord is Sauron. Long before this story starts, Sauron disguised himself and came to the elves to work with their master craftsman Celebrimbor to forge the Rings of Power. Together they made 16, called the Lesser Rings, then Celebrimbor took Sauron's formula and made 3 on his own that turned out more powerful than the original 16. Why make rings based on the suggestion of a stranger whose resume has a millennia-long gap? Because he promised the rings would fix the elves' biggest problem. This world is winding down. The amount of big and awesome and magic decreases as a function of time here. For elves, magic, immortal creatures, this is bad news. Sauron said the rings would preserve what their wearers cared about most. That's why the elven kingdoms are so fantastical compared to the rest of the world. Their rings have preserved them. Unlike the famous poem implies, the elves made all the rings for themselves, intending exactly 0 to get into the hands of men or dwarves, whom the elves think are stinky. So obviously something went wrong, which brings us back to the One Ring to rule them all. Sauron's chief ability is to dominate the minds of others. That's partly why he's able to control such large armies, and he secretly made the One Ring as a kind of lens to focus this power. His formula for ring construction, unknown to Celebrimbor, also made the wearers of the 19 rings more vulnerable. Basically, the One Ring buffs his psi attack and the other rings debuff psi defense. Plan A was to control a bunch of high-level elves, but when he put the One Ring on, the elves' base level stats allowed them to resist and take off their rings just in time. Sauron captured Celebrimbor and tortured him until he gave up the 16 lesser rings, but he died before revealing who was protecting the 3 most powerful ones. So now Sauron had 16 mind-controlling rings and had to turn to Plan B. Dwarves. Sauron manipulated 7 rings into the hands of the dwarven kings, but that didn't work well either. Dwarves are a kind of clockwork creature Sauron found impossible to control, but the rings weren't super helpful for dwarves either, who loved treasure above all else, so the rings grew their hoards large enough to attract dragons who ate the dwarves and their precious rings. Finally, in the hands of men, ever the corruptible species, the rings worked as expected. Sauron controlled their minds, and as mortals they valued their lives the most, which the rings stretched for thousands of years. Stretched so thin the men turned into invisible wraiths. Anyway, these domination plans don't go unnoticed. There's a big war, Sauron is defeated and fades, and the One Ring is lost. But the One Ring is tricksy. It has a mind of its own and wants to get back to Sauron, which brings us back to its powers. First, the ring tempts everyone, well, almost everyone, with promises that yes, this little ring can be a mighty weapon or a tool to reshape the world, and gosh, don't you just look like the best guy to use it. Let's go vanquish the powerful demigod who lives over there to get started, shall we? This is why the hobbits made great ring bearers, because they're pretty happy with the way things are and don't aspire to greatness. Of course, there's Gollum, who started out as a hobbit, but all things considered, he held out pretty well for a couple hundred years. Set the ring on the desk of most men, and they wouldn't be able to finish their coffee before heading to Mordor to rule the world and do it right this time. It's worth considering that the One Ring's promises are just lies, that no one could really overthrow Sauron with it. The ring only wants to trick its wearer to get found, which brings us to invisibility, which outside the minds of characters is the only tangible power the ring displays for everyone else. Invisibility seems great, but while you're hiding from that troll, you shine like a beacon in the unseen world, where the also invisible ring wraiths can easily spot you. In summary, the One Ring, A, turns you invisible in the most unhelpful manner, B, is probably filled with lies, because C, it's part of Sauron and works for him. He's so connected to it that its destruction ends him for good, but the formula also intertwines the One Ring with all the rest, and so when it fails, so do they. This is why the elves are so somber. Victory over Sauron also means that the rings won't preserve their kingdoms anymore, and all will diminish. These books are the end of the Age of Magic and the beginning of the Age of Men.